Welcome to Bluebell Storytime Online. I'm Miss Mandy from the BB Library here in Sylacauga. Before I read my first book, parents, I'd like to say a word or two to you about something that's very important for your children. There are 6 skills that every child needs to be ready to read. Print awareness is the first one I want to talk about. Print awareness is knowing that print has meaning. It's knowing how to handle a book and how to recognize print in the environment. Well, how can you do this with your child? It's very simple. Point to the words in the book as you read aloud. Talk about environmental print. That's road signs, restaurant signs, food labels, etc., things like that. And start reading with the book upside down and ask, is this right? These are simple activities that you can do with your young child to better prepare them for success in reading when they enter school. So I hope you'll do all of those. They're very important and they're fun. All right, the first book I'd like to read is Fancy Nancy, one of my favorites. I'd like to thank the publisher, HarperCollins, the author, Jane O'Connor, and the illustrator, Robin Priest Glasser. Thank them for allowing me to read this book with you. I love being fancy. My favorite color is fuchsia. That's a fancy way of saying purple. I like to write my name with a pen that has a plume. That's a fancy way of saying feather. And I can't wait to learn French because everything in French sounds fancy. Nobody in my family is fancy at all. They never even ask for sprinkles. There's a lot they don't understand. Lace-trimmed socks do help me to play soccer better. Sandwiches definitely taste better when you stick in frilly toothpicks. A princess is supposed to keep her tiara on. What's a fancy girl to do? I asked my doll, Maribel. Her full name is Maribel Lavinia Chandelier. Then I get an idea that is stupendous. That's a fancy word for great. Maybe I can teach my family how to be fancy. I make an ad and stick it on the fridge. Learn to be fancy with lessons from Nancy. Start today, easy, fun, free. Soon there is a knock on my door. My family saw the ad. They want to get started right away. The trouble is, my family doesn't own any fancy clothes. That's okay. I go find, oh no, what is that fancy word? Oh yes, some accessories. Ooh la la, my family is posh. That's a fancy word for fancy. My mom twirls in front of the mirror. Why don't we go somewhere fancy tonight? How about dinner at the King's Crown, Dad suggests. Wow, my parents are acting fancier already. May I escort you lovely ladies outside? The limousine is waiting. My dad is our chauffeur. That's a fancy word for driver. When we arrive at the King's Crown, everyone looks up. They probably think we're movie stars. I am so proud of my whole family. They eat with their pinkies up and call each other darling. For dessert, let's have parfaits, my mom says. That's French for ice cream sundaes. Amazing. My mother knows French. When our parfaits are ready, I curtsy and say, merci. I carry the tray like a fancy waiter. Oops, I trip, I slip. The tray does a double flip. I don't feel fancy anymore. I want to go home. After I get all cleaned up, I put on my dressing gown. Those are fancy words for bathrobe. I feel much better. I'm ready for a parfait. I tell my parents, thank you for being fancy tonight. I love you, my dad says. I love you, my mom says. And all I say back is I love you. because there isn't a fancier or better way of saying that. Parents, here's a cute little poem as you're teaching your children print awareness, a cute little poem to do with a book. Let's take a look at this book. Here is the cover. We open it wide. Here are the pages hidden inside. There are words and pictures. We look and we look, and when we are finished, we close up the book. Now I want us to sing a song about reading, since I hope this is going to be a fun, enjoyable experience with you. Let's sing about reading. If you're a reader and you know it, clap your hands. If you're a reader and you know it, clap your hands. If you're a reader and you know it and you really want to show it, if you're a reader and you know it, clap your hands. If you love books and you know it, shout hooray, hooray. If you love books and you know it, shout hooray, hooray. If you love books and you know it and you really want to show it, if you love books and you know it, shout hooray, hooray. The next book I'd like to share with you is one of our newer books. It's called Old Rock is Not Boring. And I'd like to thank the publisher, G.P. Putnam Sons, and the author, Deb Pilutti, for allowing me to share this book with you. Old Rock is Not Boring. Old Rock had been sitting in the same spot at the edge of a clearing in the middle of a pine forest for as long as anyone could remember, and even before that. Being a rock seems awfully boring, said Tall Pine. You sit in the same spot day after day, said Spotted Beetle. It's a very nice spot, said Old Rock. Don't you want to go anywhere? Asked Hummingbird. I've flown all over the world and sipped the nectar of exotic flowers. I would surely be bored if I could not fly. I flew once, said Old Rock. Gosh, said Tall Pine. How? Asked Spotted Beetle. Rocks don't fly, said Hummingbird. Old Rock told them about the time in the beginning when darkness was all around. And then I erupted out of a volcano, soared through a fiery sky into the bright light of a new world. So it was just the one time, said Hummingbird. And now you're sitting here, said Tall Pine. Being bored, said Spotted Beetle. I'm not bored, said Old Rock. Don't you want to see more? Asked Spotted Beetle. If I climbed to the tip-top branch of a tall pine tree, I might see a deer mouse nibbling seeds in a nearby tree, or watch ships sailing across the big lake. Old Rock said, I've seen a lot. Old Rock told them about the time a group of friendly dinosaurs lumbered by, munching every leaf in sight. Then, many years later, a not-so-friendly dinosaur came looking for a meal. Time passed, things changed, and the world chilled. Which wasn't too bad, because Old Rock took a ride in a glacier and toured the land. Once the glacier melted, it left me perched at the top of a ridge, and I could see the place where the sky touches the earth. My, you have seen a lot, said Spotted Beetle. How unusual, said Hummingbird. Yes, but that was ages ago, said Tall Pine. Aren't you bored now? Don't you want to move? My limbs flutter gently in a breeze and dance wildly when the wind blows. I've never danced, but I'm pretty good at doing somersaults, said Old Rock. Old Rock revealed that after teetering on the ridge for a while, the ground rumbled, and I tumbled and stumbled down, down, down into a valley. Grasses grew, mastodons roamed, and lakes formed. I never knew a rock had moves like that, said Tall Pine. I wish I could have seen those things, said Spotted Beetle. What happened next? Asked Hummingbird. A pine forest sprouted up around me. One day, a strong breeze shook a pine cone loose. From the pine cone, a seed fell onto the forest floor. I watched that seedling grow up to be the tall pine who dances in the wind and keeps me company. Sometimes a spotted beetle wanders along to report all that he sees. And every so often, the loveliest hummingbird stops to rest after a long flight, and she describes the amazing places she's visited. It's a very nice spot, said Old Rock. Yes, it is, agreed Tall Pine. Very nice, said Spotted Beetle. Not boring at all, said Hummingbird. Thank you so much for joining me today for Bluebell Storytime Online. See you next time.